A long time ago, I worked as a bartender in a big rock bar. The bar was huge, filled with people every night, and the music was always loud and exciting. I wasn't the best bartender, but I wasn't the worst either. I had learned a lot over time, and I could keep up with the busy crowd. My job was to run the main service bar, which meant making sure the waitresses had everything they needed to serve the customers. I also had to manage all the ordering, making sure the bar never ran out of anything important. It was a lot of work, and there were always things happening that kept me on my toes. Sometimes it felt like I was running around all night, but I got used to it. It wasn't always easy, but it was definitely exciting and kept me busy. One afternoon, I walked into the bar feeling excited about the night ahead. I had chosen what I thought was a beautiful dress to wear that day. It was bright and colorful, with a flowy skirt that moved just right as I walked. I had taken extra time that morning to pick it out, wanting to feel good and look nice for the night. My job was always busy, running around to make sure each bar had enough liquor, serving drinks to customers, and making sure everything was in order for the waitresses. But this night felt different. I felt like I was stepping into the night with a little extra confidence, and I was ready to take on the challenge of keeping everything running smoothly. As I walked through the doors of the bar, I felt the usual rush of energy, people laughing, music playing, and the sound of glasses clinking. It was always chaotic, but in a way, I loved it. I was determined to get everyone their drinks, make sure the night went well, and do everything I needed to do to make it a success. It turned out that the dress I had chosen was even prettier than I had realized. I had walked in feeling good, but when my boss saw me, his eyes lit up, and he immediately complimented me on how nice I looked. I smiled, flattered by the attention, and thought maybe he was just being kind. After a few moments, he called me over and told me to see him in his office when I was finished with my work for the night. I thought to myself, this could be good. Maybe he's going to offer me a raise or something nice. I felt a little nervous but also curious. It had been a busy night, and I was hopeful it meant something positive for my hard work. I knocked on his office door, and his voice called from inside, "Come in, and please close the door behind you." I walked in, thinking everything was normal. But as soon as I stepped inside, the atmosphere changed. He looked at me in a way that made my stomach turn. He didn't mention anything about my hard work or offer any praise. Instead, he said something that shocked me to my core. He told me that if I wanted to keep my job, I would need to do something terrible, something that was completely wrong. His words hit me like a slap, and I froze. For a moment, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I didn't know what to say or do. I looked at him, feeling a mix of disbelief and anger. I knew this wasn't right. I didn't say a word, not a single thing. I turned around, walked straight to the door, and left. As soon as I stepped out, I could feel the weight lifting from my chest. I didn't look back, and I never regretted it. I knew in my heart that no job, no matter how challenging, was worth compromising my values. I never returned to that place again, and I moved on, stronger and more determined than ever to stand up for myself. When I finally got home, I felt like everything was spinning. My mind was full of thoughts, and I needed to clear my head. I decided to take a walk, hoping the fresh air would help me shake off the bad feelings that had been weighing on me. The streets were quiet, and the night was starting to fall, but I didn't mind. It felt good to get out and move. As I walked, I began thinking about my next steps. I needed a job, and I wasn't sure where to start, but I knew I had to keep going forward. I wandered through the familiar streets, lost in thought, until I found myself walking under a viaduct, a place I passed by often but never really paid much attention to. The sound of my footsteps echoed in the empty space beneath the bridge. Suddenly, I heard something behind me, a noise that made my heart race. Before I could react, a man leapt to the ground behind me, and I heard the unmistakable sound of running footsteps. My stomach dropped. He was chasing me. I didn't know what to do. My legs felt heavy, and fear gripped my chest. It felt like the world around me slowed down, but the man's footsteps were getting louder, closer. Panic set in as I realized he was gaining on me. My breath came in short gasps as I looked around desperately for a place to hide. Then, in a flash, I saw a yard with a high fence. Without thinking, I dashed toward it, praying I could make it. I leaped over the low part of the fence and landed in someone's yard, heart pounding in my ears. I crouched down, trying to keep as quiet as possible. The man didn't stop chasing me, but at least now he couldn't see me. I stayed frozen, trying to calm my racing thoughts, but the fear was unbearable. I realized then that I was more terrified now than I had been at the bar with my boss. At least there, I had a choice, one I was able to make. But here, in the dark, there was no choice. No one to help. I just had to hope that he would give up and leave me alone. It felt like the chase would never end. When I finally made it home, I was exhausted, not just physically, but mentally. My mind was a storm of thoughts, and I couldn't shake the heaviness that seemed to weigh on me. I walked straight to my room, still in that dress, but it no longer felt beautiful. It felt like a reminder of everything that had just happened, a symbol of something I never wanted to remember. Without thinking, I grabbed the dress and threw it into the garbage. As I watched it land in the trash, I couldn't help but feel a little sad. It really had been a beautiful dress, one I had once been so proud to wear. But now, it held nothing but bad memories, and I knew I would never wear it again. I sat on my bed for a while, staring at the empty space in my room. Everything felt different, but I knew I couldn't stay in this place forever. I needed to start fresh. The idea of finding another job seemed overwhelming, but I couldn't just give up. I had to keep moving forward. After some time, I made up my mind. I would find a new job, one that would let me start over, away from all the negativity I had just experienced. I started searching for openings, and soon, I came across a job at a local hotel. It wasn't exactly what I had done before, but it felt like the right move. A hotel job would give me the chance to meet new people, learn new skills, and most importantly, leave behind everything that had hurt me. It was a fresh start, and that was exactly what I needed. So, I applied and hoped for the best. It was time to turn the page and begin a new chapter in my life. I got the same job at a different hotel, and this time, things seemed to be falling into place. It wasn't easy at first, of course, there were still challenges, new people to get used to, and unfamiliar tasks to learn. But I was determined, and this time, I felt like I was in control. Every day, I worked hard, staying focused on my responsibilities. It wasn't just about the job anymore, it was about rebuilding my life and creating something better for myself. Slowly, things began to improve. I felt more confident, and each day was a little brighter than the last. But something else happened along the way, something I hadn't expected. While I was working hard, I also started to meet new people, guests, staff, and other co-workers. One of them stood out. He was kind, funny, and easy to talk to, and we quickly became friends. Over time, our friendship grew into something more. It wasn't love at first sight, but there was something about him that made me feel at ease, something that made me believe in happiness again. As we spent more time together, laughing over shared stories, helping each other through tough days, and supporting each other, I realized I was falling for him. It was the kind of love I hadn't seen coming, but it felt so natural. For the first time in a long while, I felt truly happy, not just because of the job or the new start, but because I had found someone who cared about me. Things were looking up, and I couldn't help but feel that this new chapter in my life was finally turning out the way I had always hoped. One day, while I was walking to work, something unexpected happened. I turned a corner and there he was, my previous boss, the one I had walked out on months ago. I couldn't believe my eyes at first. It was as if the world had just stopped for a moment. He looked just the same, dressed in his usual suit, his face carrying that familiar smug expression. But this time, when he saw me, his face completely changed. His eyes widened with surprise, and he took a step back as if he couldn't believe I was standing in front of him. I stood there for a moment, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to walk away, to pretend like I hadn't seen him. But another part of me, the part that had fought so hard to get away from him, felt strangely calm. It was as if seeing him again was no longer a source of fear or anger. I was different now, stronger and more confident. I had walked away from him once, and I had no intention of going back to that life. He seemed to gather himself quickly and stepped forward, trying to act like everything was normal. He asked, "How have you been?" His voice was softer than I remembered, almost polite, as if he was trying to make up for the past. But there was something in his eyes that told me he wasn't just surprised to see me, maybe he was even a little bit worried. I looked at him for a long moment, my mind racing. A part of me felt a sense of justice, knowing that I had stood up for myself and walked away when I needed to. I finally answered with a calm, steady voice, "I'm doing well. Thank you for asking." Then, without saying another word, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there in the street. As I walked on, I felt a sense of freedom that I hadn't realized I'd been missing all along. He was part of my past, but I was no longer bound by him.